Without hesitation, ELO Pacher asked directly about the situation. After years of accidental separation, his girlfriend Mary O'Brien, who was supposed to have died in the war, and became a well-known couple under the arrangement of the church, the old relationship between the two people who had been reunited for a long time was burning dry. Naturally, he soon found out that Mary O'Brien was actually an emotional offender. But he is not the same at this time. In front of his beloved, how can he allow himself to continue to be a cold and emotionless machine? Without even using Mary O'Brien's persuasion, he stopped using Bojan on his own initiative, and after asking to know that Mary was a member of the resistance organization, he even decided to join the resistance organization. As a senior priest who deals with emotional criminals every day, ELO Pacher knows that now he secretly stops injecting Bojan and has feelings again. Although he can live happily with his lover every day, it is not a long-term solution. All the people around him are priests who have the same keen sense as him. Even if he conceals it well, sooner or later, it will be discovered. If he wants to be completely liberated and free, he must unite with others and overthrow the church. That's why he joined the resistance so decisively. Now when he heard that Jurgen had something to do, he asked for the details directly. As long as it is helpful to overthrow the church, he will do it without hesitation. With you joining us, we finally have our own people in the church, which is of great significance to our ultimate goal, Jurgen said solemnly, sitting behind his desk. But if more priests can join us, the chances of overthrowing the church will be greater. ELO Pacher frowned at the words. It's not easy to do. In my observation, there should be only one emotional offender among the priests at present. However, if you want to actively influence them to recover their emotions, it's very difficult and dangerous, and it's impossible to succeed at all. There is nothing wrong with what ELO Pacher said. The Lord Priest is the core force of the church, and his loyalty to the church and the Pope is also the most firm. The resistance organization even dare not take the initiative to test the influence of ordinary people, let alone the priests. But Jurgen smiled at the words. I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about Kevin James. Is it him? As soon as ELO Pacher's eyes brightened, he could not help but think of a tall and majestic figure. Now he is only a small captain of the army, but he is a little better than the priest. As a senior priest, if he comes slowly, he may be rebellious, and with his talent and strength, it is only a matter of time before he becomes a priest. It's really a good choice. Jurgen nodded softly, looked at ELO Pacher in front of him and continued. Yes, in fact, he is our man. What? When ELO Pacher heard this, he was surprised. He never thought that this soldier, Kevin James, who had been very optimistic before and gradually showed great fighting talent in the process of suppressing bandits, was also a member of the resistance organization, which was far beyond his expectation. But then there was a glimmer of excitement in his face. That would be easy. With that, ELO Pacher looked up at Jurgen, who was sitting opposite him, and said positively, We had planned to investigate him for a while before we recruited him into the preliminaries. Since he is also our man, I would recommend him to join the preliminaries as soon as possible. Jurgen nodded. Then I'll leave it to you. I hope I can help us a lot as soon as possible. Don't worry. After that day, a few days later, ELO Pacher asked John Peston to officially recommend Kevin James, the leader of the extermination team, to the church as a trainee priest. This Kevin James is Chenmo naturally. He had planned to recruit ELO Pacher into the resistance organization in advance. Seeing that it seemed to take a long time for him to become a priest, he simply implemented the plan to recruit him in advance, and then used him to speed up the progress of joining the Lord Priest. Under his scheme and Jarvis's operation, everything went well. John Peston suddenly proposed to ELO Pacher that he end his investigation and recommend Chenmo to join the Lord Priest Reserve team. Now that ELO Pacher has become an emotional offender, it's natural to be careful everywhere, and come up with the right reasons before making this proposal. Now, the illegal goods trafficking organizations outside the city are endless, and the emotional crimes inside the city seem to be more hidden. There are not many Jehovah's priests. Now they all go out every day, but the effect is very small. They need more priests to fight against emotional crimes. Now that Chen Mo's talent has been basically determined, there is no need to waste a lot of time to investigate it slowly and send it directly to the reserve team for comprehensive assessment and training. If all the talent is qualified, you can complete the training as soon as possible and put it into the battle of church protection. If the talent is not enough, you can give up early, and then you can transfer back to the army. John Paston, who is still loyal to the church and has not yet recovered his feelings as in the plot, agreed with this statement very much, so he joined him in recommending Chen Mo. The document appeared in front of Vice Chairman DuPont the next day. Although the whole management of Libya is in his hands, there are heads of various departments in the government to assist in the management. In addition, the current situation in Libya is orderly, which does not require him to pay much attention. So most of his energy is in church affairs and dealing with emotional crimes. The Lord Priest is the most important part of them. That is, they maintain the foundation of church rule, and they are the main force to deal with emotional crimes. Therefore, he will attach great importance to all matters related to the priest. As long as it is conducive to the growth of the priesthood group and the consolidation of the church's rule, he has no reason to oppose it, even if he signs the order. Approved. He didn't know that he had approved to send away a senior priest last time, but this approval brought in a more terrible existence than the senior priest. In any case, after some hard work, Chen Mo finally joined the priesthood reserve team of Jehovah's Church. But for the time being, he is not a trainee because before that, he still needs to pass the talent test of Jehovah's priesthood. As mentioned before, the Lord Priest's unique skill, gun fighting, requires a lot of talents. In addition to the most basic shooting talent, the requirements for fencing talent, fighting talent, and mathematical talent are also very high. Chen Mo showed only shooting talent before. However, his shooting talent and strength in actual combat can be regarded as the top among all the people who have not yet learned the skill of gun fighting. On this basis alone, as long as he is not too poor in other aspects, the church, which is in urgent need of high-end force to suppress emotional crimes and stabilize its dictatorship, will not give up on him. But before the talent test, Chen must accept another test, emotional test. The position of the clergyman is very important and the most solid backing of the church. Every clergyman must guarantee absolute loyalty. Therefore, a strict examination should be carried out for the new clergyman. There is no problem with Chen Mo's identity information. Jarvis has been handling it properly for a long time without any flaws. As for this emotional test, it's a dead end for other emotional offenders, but for Chen Mo, who can accurately control every detail of the whole body, it's very simple to cheat the past. In the eyes of Chen Mo, he even had to deliberately suppress his own strength and perform worse, so as not to be too shocking. Shooting talent test. Holding two guns, Chen Mo shoots at the targets that are randomly ejected in all directions 20 meters away from the opposite side. The guns hit the target center. However, with the speed of the target ejecting, Chen Mo's shooting rate begins to decline gradually. At this time, his strength has fully met the requirements of becoming a priest, and among the people who have not studied gun fighting, Chen Mo has already it's the top fencing talent test. After only watching the video once, Chen Mo has learned through the greatly simplified and improved sword technique. The key points of every move and action are clear to his heart. He is absolutely more skilled than the senior priest who has practiced for many years. Chen Mo, who is possessed of extraordinary swordsmanship, can be regarded as a master of swordsmanship. In his opinion, this set of swordsmanship has no difficulty. With his strong memory and learning ability, it is very easy to learn it quickly. When demonstrating it, he has to deliberately behave strangely. In this way, he has seen several examiners nodding their heads, obviously satisfied. Combat talent test, math talent test, physical fitness test, brain ability test. After a series of examinations, Chen Mo passed the gun-fighting talent test with a grade of A. His test results were also handed over to the Vice Chairman Du Peng. Seeing that the results were right, he was also a seedling of a senior priest. Du Peng was very satisfied. At the same time, he ordered Chen Mo to focus on training, strive to complete the study and training of gun fighting as soon as possible, become a formal priest, and devote himself to the fight against emotional crimes. In this regard, Chen Mo formally joined the Church of the Lord and became an apprentice priest. He also started his study of gun fighting as he wanted. The most basic skills of archery, swordsmanship, and fighting are fine. Chen Mo, who has a strong foundation, has no difficulty at all. He spent a few days learning and training and soon mastered them all. On the basis of traditional martial arts swordsmanship and shooting skills, through a large number of data analysis, the simplified and improved scientific fighting skills, in fact, are very consistent with Chen Mo's fighting style. His fighting skills are also simple, fast, direct, and efficient. These skills are of great significance to him. As long as they are integrated with his original fighting skills, his strength will be greatly improved. The three main fighting skills of gun fighting are not complicated as a whole. Like other skills, as long as people with certain talents spend enough time to learn them, only the degree of mastery and the power they can play in actual combat will vary from person to person. But these three kinds of skills are only the basis of gun fighting. The main reason why gun fighting can be far more powerful than ordinary fighting skills is not these three fighting skills. The real core of gun fighting is calculation. It is the mastery, analysis, deduction, and prediction of the battlefield. But these depend not on swordsmanship or physical skill, but on a complex discipline. Yes, the core of gun fighting is not so much skill as a subject. When Chen Mo was led into the exclusive study room of the priest, the room full of books surprised Chen Mo. Different from the fighting skills such as gunmanship, fencing, and fighting, there are only a few books in total. The core theory of gunfighting integrates mathematics, geometry, statistics, probability, and other disciplines. Its content is extremely huge, and the theory is more profound and complex. Although these books are not all materials of gun fighting, most of them are related to mathematics, geometry, statistics, probability, and other disciplines. But there are dozens of theoretical materials of gun fighting. Compared with the common fighting skills, these theoretical books of gun fighting are not only numerous, but also very complex and profound in content. It is not much easier or even more difficult to master them completely than to study for a doctor's degree. After that, Chen Mo spent most of his time here. First, Chen Mo looked through the books about gun fighting and had a deeper and clear understanding of the principle and effect of gun fighting. The core of gun fighting theory is a set of complex mathematical and geometric models summarized through a large number of actual combat analysis. When fighting, all the relevant data such as their own position, environmental factors, and enemy situation are integrated into the model for calculation and deduction, which can analyze the enemy position distribution, attack trajectory, bullet distribution, as well as their best attack position and attack mode, attack trajectory, dodge way, etc. Can even predict the next move of the enemy. In order to achieve this powerful effect of almost absolute control, in addition to the combat analysis model, theory, and skills of gun fighting, users are also required to have very strong abilities in mathematics, geometry, statistics, probability, and other aspects. The key is to have a super brain that can run as fast as a computer. Only when the brain is developed enough can we calculate the result according to a lot of battlefield information in an instant, and can we fully show the amazing power of gun fighting. In fact, there are only 6 senior priests in the church. In addition to 6 senior priests, a dozen other gray-robed priests and more than 20 trainee priests could not reach the level of instantaneous calculation results. Some of them are not proficient in gun fighting and need a lot of practice and practical training. However, many of them don't have such superhuman brain power at all. Although they are much stronger than ordinary people, they still don't meet the requirements of gun fighting. Therefore, the reaction speed and control ability in actual combat are much worse, and there is not much room for improvement. They will spend their whole life, that is to say, the degree of gray priest. This is also the reason why senior priests are rare. Gun fighting requires too much brain power. Few people can meet it. The whole Libya has not found a few people, so the church will reduce its requirements and recruit a group of people with slightly poor talent. The top can only become a gray priest. Senior priests are scarce, so it's good to cultivate more gray-robed priests. Although their strength is much worse than that of senior priests, and even their pairings will be killed by senior priests directly, compared with ordinary soldiers, gray-robed priests are very powerful and powerful. Although they can't kill a group of armed soldiers without injury due, but it's not something ordinary soldiers can handle. After knowing the principle of gunfight, Chen Mo also tried to learn gunfight directly. He had read all kinds of books in the school library when he was in university. He also had a certain foundation in the knowledge of mathematics, geometry, statistics, probability, and other disciplines, which was basically equivalent to the degree of undergraduate. But he soon found that although he could basically understand the books of gun fighting theory, and he knew most of the theories and related knowledge he needed, there were still some things beyond his scope of knowledge, which made him unable to continue to learn. It seems that the knowledge requirements of gun fighting for these related disciplines are not only equivalent to the basic level of undergraduate. Chen Mo simply stopped learning those gun fighting books, but first read all the books of mathematics, geometry, statistics, probability, and other subjects. With Chen Mo's super-developed brain, which is difficult and obscure in the eyes of ordinary people, Chen Mo learns with ease. He also found that the books here are indeed more profound than those he had mastered. Different disciplines are placed on the shelf in different categories. From the bottom to the top, from the foundation to the advanced, the top of each discipline has exceeded the level of doctoral students. In fact, it is not necessary to master every knowledge to the highest level. As long as the overall level of undergraduate knowledge is reached, and then a part of the relevant high-end knowledge theory can be studied specially. The books at the top level of all disciplines are just for reference. After all, people's energy is limited. It's good to put a science to the top. With the intelligence quotient of these selected talents, it's okay to say that we should learn all of them to the top. It's not impossible, but it will take a long time. So almost all of us have mastered the basic knowledge of each subject, and then we will directly start to learn the books of gun fighting. When we encounter the incomprehensible or need to learn the relevant knowledge, we will consult those books of each subject to learn the corresponding high-end knowledge and theory. The church's consideration is nothing more than efficiency. First, we should lay a good foundation for each subject, and then we should improve and learn a small part of the specialized theories according to the needs of gun fighting. Naturally, it is more efficient and time-consuming than comprehensive learning to master all the knowledge of each subject. It can't be said that it's wrong, but it can be seen from all the top-level books of all disciplines that these things have a certain impact on the power of gun fighting, but they are not so large. The time consumed is not proportional to the effective promotion. The cost performance is too low, and the talent and brain power requirements of learners are also higher. But this is not a problem for Chen. The talents selected by the church in the past can only be regarded as the best among ordinary people, but they are not of the same level compared with Chen Mo, a superpower who is 8 times more powerful than ordinary people in all aspects. Chen Mo, the basic teacher in these books, has learned to look at the differences between the two worlds again, and found that they are indeed more advanced than the theory of the real world. After all, this is a world in which the Third World War took place. The original level of science and technology and the theoretical level of various disciplines are much more advanced than the real world. However, the basic theory is basically the same, so Chen Mo only read these basic books once and then fully mastered them. In fact, it doesn't take too much time to master the intermediate postgraduate level and senior doctoral level. Ordinary people who have the talent spend more time to master them. Chen Mo has no problem. After reading and memorizing them in his mind, he can thoroughly master them after combing and verifying them. However, some of the knowledge at the highest level is too profound. Chen Mo also spends too much because he has never been contacted before some time to master. However, compared with other people, Chen Mo's speed has been regarded as a speed. That is, the top-level knowledge he spent the most time on, and his learning time is much shorter than other people's learning basis. This is the difference between genius and peerless genius. After mastering all the relevant knowledge of gun fighting, Chen Mo can easily and simply learn the theory of gun fighting again. He also found that those knowledge theories which he learned by the way, which are not the top level necessary for gun fighting, can play a significant role, making the analysis, judgment, deduction, and prediction of gun fighting more accurate and efficient. Many of the information that was vague, uncertain, or impossible to accurately speculate became clearer and clearer after he fully used these theories to calculate and deduce, and the prediction of the enemy's actions became more accurate and long-term. This confirms Chen Mo's conjecture. These books are not placed here casually. Except for a small number of top-level books that are clearly marked on gun fighting books, most of the top-level books are not needed. Since the church has put these books here, they must be useful, but for some reason they are not straight come on. In addition, Chen Mo's curiosity about the top theory of the advanced world, which broke out in the Third World War. Anyway, it won't take him long with his brain power. Chen Mo simply learned altogether. The final result did not disappoint Chen Mo. Naturally, Chen Mo was not disappointed. It took a little more time for Chen Mo to learn a lot of theoretical knowledge that can be called the top in the real world. The most important thing is to improve the effect of gun fighting. For others, the cost effectiveness is very low, but for Chen Mo, whose learning speed is amazing, the cost effectiveness is very high. Although Chen Mo learned a lot of advanced and top-level knowledge theories, he did not spend much time on them, and he learned them all much faster than those who only learned a part of them. This time, Chen Mo didn't continue to be clumsy in this respect, wasting a lot of time in vain, but simply said that he had completed the study of theoretical knowledge. Big Deal is regarded as a genius. However, he didn't say that he had learned all the top-level theories. It's acceptable for him to master the foundation and a small part of advanced theories in a short time. Even if he mastered all the advanced theories, he would not be called a peerless genius, but a monster. Due to the attention of Vice Chairman Du Peng to Chen Mo completed the study of the most time-consuming core theory of gunfight in a short time, which was soon reported. It took 7 days to complete the theoretical study of gun fighting. It's almost twice as fast as John Peston, who has the highest talent and the fastest learning speed. However, Du Peng didn't think of other places. What Chen Mo showed was his super talent and brain power, not his emotion. The previous emotion test has proved that he has no problem. He will not connect him with the resistance organization because of Chen Mo's super talent. Resistance organizations are just a group of ordinary people gathered together in an attempt to overthrow the rule of a powerful church. They can also attract some emotional criminals of their own initiative to commit crimes among the common people. They can reach into the army and the church. They don't have that ability. In the past, the emotional criminals they found and arrested were all ordinary citizens. Although the government and the military occasionally found emotional crimes, they were all individual crimes, and they did not join resistance organizations. They had the highest loyalty and were never found in the church with more strict management. DuPont's idea is also true, but he does not know that the resistance organization has no ability. Does not mean Chen Mo has no. With the help of Jarvis, there are more and more government personnel and military soldiers joining the resistance organization. In accordance with this trend, we don't even need to do anything as long as we carefully hide and develop, secretly control the government and the army, and overthrow the church's rule at one stroke is only a matter of time. Of course, the premise is that the government and military personnel who join the resistance organization are good enough to hide, do not expose, and cause the church to clean up. These are all afterwards, but Chen Mo said that he had completed the study of gun fighting in less than half a month and mastered it thoroughly. As long as you have completed your study and passed the examination, you can officially become a priest and wear the uniform representing your identity and power. However, at the beginning, the system of a formal priest is gray. Only after you have accumulated enough achievements can you be promoted to the highest level. Therefore, after Chen Mo successfully completed the examination, he changed into a gray knee-high priest robe, matched with his tall and slender figure, which showed his bravery and handsome. In fact, Chen Mo can leave after he has learned the skill of gun fighting, but he has learned the most important thing. Chen Mo is not worried, and he has other considerations. On the one hand, we can carry out a lot of practice and deepen the understanding and function of gun fighting. After all, there are not so many enemies in the real world who can let him kill and hone his experience. On the other hand, Chen Mo can learn how to fight with a gun so smoothly. ELO Pater and the resistance organization have great contributions. If he leaves directly, without the protection and help of Jarvis, it's really uncertain whether he can overthrow the church successfully. Most of all, Chen Mo is very interested in the Pope who established Libya in the post-war chaos and created a powerful gun-fighting technique. From him, there may be some surprises. So Chen Mo didn't leave in a hurry after he got the gun fight. Instead, he continued to stay, took part in the church's promotion assessment and became a gray priest. This time, along with Chen Mo, he passed the formal assessment of promotion to a priest, and a black trainee priest named Brent. His talent and strength were originally the top of all the clergymen, but compared with Chen Mo, the peerless genius, they were much weaker. The attention and value of vice chairman and church were naturally transferred from him to Chen Mo. Although he didn't say anything, Chen Mo could clearly feel the hostility when he looked at himself, but he deliberately concealed it hidden eyes. Chen Mo's scornful smile, the Brant also appeared in the film, is a very insidious villain. After the killing of ELO Pater, Brant, who performed well among the gray-robed priests, was arranged to be John Preston's new partner. However, Brant, who was keen on power, always coveted the position of John Preston. After discovering the abnormality of John Preston, he always wanted to prove that he had become an emotional offender to take advantage of it. Now it seems that he has become a thorn in his eye, but in Chen Mo's eyes, he is just a jester. Chen Mo wants to clean him up in minutes, so it's better to leave him first, and maybe he will use it later. At the same time, after carefully exploring Brant's situation by using perception, Chen Mo also came to a surprising conclusion that Brant was also an emotional offender. In fact, Chen Mo was not surprised by this discovery, because he had some doubts about Brent's performance in the film. A man injected with Bojan, who lost his feelings and desires, was so keen on power. Today's discovery is to verify Chen Mo's doubt, but although Brant is an emotional offender, he does not want to overthrow the church's rule and restore freedom, but wants to climb up and become a ruler like DuPont. This is also the reason why the resistance organization will not directly contact with the church after discovering the emotional offender. Not every emotional offender hates the church. Many people, whether out of fear or brainwashing, are only careful to hide even if they recover their emotions. They do not have the right idea to do with the church. If the resistance organization contacts rashly, it is likely to be reported. Therefore, resistance organizations are always cautious in recruiting members. Only after a period of observation, people who are absolutely reliable can join, and those who are afraid or loyal to the church are abandoned. With the help of Jarvis, the members of the resistance organization are rarely arrested. Those emotional prisoners arrested by the church are basically those who are afraid of the church, dare not resist, and just live. Brent is different from them and the resistance organization. He is neither like these people who are afraid of death, nor like members of the resistance organization who are willing to sacrifice for freedom. He is bold and crazy. All he does is to pursue rights. For this reason, he can do anything. The birth of two new gray-robed priests, Chen Mo and Brant, has made the church adjust the staff arrangement of the priests. Chen Mo and Brent are both outstanding in strength and talent, so in order to better cultivate them, the church arranged two senior priests to partner with John Peston and Elo Pater respectively. Chen Mo's side is fine. With his control over himself, he doesn't worry about being seen by John Peston. It's Arlo Pater's side. He's not very good at hiding. He's estimated that it won't take long for him to be discovered by Brant, who has been peeping at his senior priest status. It's better to prepare early. In the following days, Chen Mo and John Peston went out on a mission together. On the contrary, Chen Mo took the initiative every time he went out of the city to exterminate the illegal drug trafficking organization. Most of his enemies were killed by him alone. John Peston spent most of his time pressing him down, occasionally pointing out some problems in Chen Mo's gun fight and his own experience. His own gun has not been used for a long time. Chen Mo's gun fighting skills have improved rapidly in this large number of practical exercises. In the first few days, John Peston was able to find some small problems and give Chen Mo some guidance, but soon he found that Chen Mo's talent, savvy, and learning speed were amazing. His skill of gun fighting has advanced rapidly in the actual combat. In just a few days, he has been proficient in using it, even worse than some senior gray-robed priests. Even with Chen Mo's endless crazy fighting, he has reached the level of senior priests. This talent is absolutely the best among all the priests. It can be said that no one can match it. John Peston knows that it won't take long for Chen Mo's strength to reach the level of senior priest, or even surpass him, and become the strongest one among all the priests. At that time, with his performance in the mission, he will eliminate a lot of accumulated skills from countless emotional criminals outside the city. Jai may soon become the 7th senior priest of the Church of the Lord. In fact, since joining the army, Chen Mo has been suppressing his power since he became a gray-robed priest and led the army out of the city together with John Peston to suppress bandits. Whether it's speed, strength, or agility response, all of them are controlled in the same degree as senior priests. He did so in order to hide his strength, not to arouse doubt, and more importantly, to exercise his gun fighting skills. When he didn't learn how to fight with guns, He was a regular shooting method at the level of ordinary veterans of 100 battles. With the support of his superhuman physical quality, he was able to play a gun-fight strength no less than that of senior priests. If he gives full play to his own strength and adds powerful and exquisite gun-fighting skills, these can only be regarded as the insurgents of the mob's illegal goods trafficking organization. Even if the number is no more, it cannot play a role in training. Chen Mo has just learned the skill of fighting with a gun. He is only able to master the theory and skills. Only through a large number of high-intensity actual combat can he fully understand these theories and skills, including the deduction and calculation of fighting with a gun. Although he can complete complex calculation and analysis in a very short time with his own powerful brain power, he is still slower than his instinctive response only after continuous exercise, and finally forming instinct. All data analysis and calculation are like a set program, and the results are automatically calculated in the brain. Can we achieve the fastest response speed and increase the power of gun fighting to the maximum? Only the strength of senior priests is not Chen Mo's ultimate goal. If the ordinary gray priest can defeat 4 or 6 armed elite soldiers without damage, senior priests can beat 10 to 15. In terms of shooting ability, Chen's original shooting ability was basically at the level of senior priests. At the beginning of the martial arts school, Chen Mo met more than a dozen gangsters who came to him. Chen Mo killed them all in a flash. Although these gangsters are far less powerful than elite soldiers. As for his ability to defeat hundreds of Hydra warriors and a Hydra base by himself, he relies on the indestructible primitive Edelman alloy shield, Edelman alloy armor, and the indestructible King's sword, as well as his own body speed far beyond that of ordinary people. Without these super equipment and keeping his physical fitness at the level of ordinary people, he would not be able to play such a powerful fighting force with a pistol alone. But now with gun fighting, it's different. At present, his mastery of gunfight is not complete, but it is only a matter of time. When he finally mastered gunfight, with the upper limit of theory and knowledge brought by the top level of all disciplines related to gunfight, Chen Mo can eliminate 20 elite soldiers without any damage while maintaining the physical quality of ordinary people. As for the number of people, the omnidirectional fire blockade formed by dozens of automatic rifles is not able to evade and break through the physical quality of ordinary people. Even if the calculation ability of gun fighting is strong, it cannot avoid omnidirectional concentrated shooting without dead angle. Of course, if it's in a complex environment, it's a different story in the case of non-positive engagement. On this day, Chen Mo and John Peston led out of the city again, but this time their goal was not to be near the Libyan area outside the city wall, but to the extreme edge of the Nisses area. According to the church's information, a large-scale contraband trafficking organization just escaped from another anti-trafficking team of the church, fled to the outer area of Nisses district, and hid there to escape the pursuit of the church. However, their whereabouts were found by the church. This time, the church sent Chen Mo and John Peston, who performed the best in this period of time, and doubled the number of soldiers. On the outskirts of Nisses, between the crumbling ruins and the dilapidated buildings, a convoy of 6 large armored vehicles and a limousine was driving on a dusty, cracked asphalt road. "Stop!" A cold command voice came out of the walkie-talkie on several armored vehicles. Upon receiving the order, several armored cars stopped immediately. But the door of the white luxury car that had been driving in the back of the motorcade suddenly opened, and a tall and slender figure with a cold face, wearing a powerful and handsome gray priest's uniform, came down from the car slowly. "This is yours, Reverend Peston." When Chen Mo finished speaking to John Peston in the car, he nodded, closed the door directly, and drove to the destination alone. This place is several kilometers away from the hiding place of the armed elements mentioned in the intelligence, but considering that they found out the whereabouts of the clean-up team in advance in the last operation, they evacuated in time and fled in the past, which shows that the gangsters are very alert and should have set up secret sentries on the periphery. So Chen Mo suggested that he should go ahead and sneak into their cordon circle, kill all the secret guards, and then let the large forces advance to wipe out the armed forces at one stroke. In view of Chen Mo's excellent performance in this period, John Peston did not object. Chen Mo's strength in this period of fighting can be said to be rapid progress. Not only the strength of gun fighting has been close to the senior priest, but also the field command ability is very powerful. In the past, John Peston never cared about the on-site command, but always relied on powerful force to crush. In his opinion, the soldiers and their role were more to eliminate the fish in the net and search for the contraband. The real battle depended on their priests. Although Chen Mo has always been a pioneer, as the main force in the suppression, he can command the soldiers to encircle, divide, and suppress, so that the fighting is not as messy as before, but more orderly. Under his command, the soldiers played a greater auxiliary role, which greatly improved the operational efficiency and the number of killed enemies of the entire clean-up and suppression team, and greatly reduced their own battle damage rate and the number of armed elements escaping. In this regard, even John Peston himself was not ashamed of it. However, Chen Mo himself was promoted from the army. After systematic learning of gun fighting, his overall understanding of the battlefield has been greatly enhanced, and his command ability has become more outstanding. It is reasonable that John Peston just lamented Chen Mo's growth and talent, but he had no other ideas. In fact, the reason why Chen Mo is so diligent in commanding is just to let these soldiers help him get all the armed elements together, so that he can enjoy the fight and hone his gun fighting skills. Let the troops stand by. Chen Mo quickly toward the target position, at the same time feel open, eyes in front of the ruins and buildings continue to sweep, ears receive 4 weeks of subtle sound. As long as someone is hiding nearby, Chen Mo absolutely can't escape the induction. Although Chen Mo didn't run at full speed and kept an eye on the surrounding movement, his speed was still not slow. After a few minutes, he reached 2 or 3 kilometers away from the target. Chen Mo's running figure suddenly flashed to the side and hid in an abandoned building beside him. Standing in the shadow of the building, Chen Mo looks up at the top of a half-collapsed building hundreds of meters away. A figure with only half of his head exposed clearly appeared in Chen Mo's vision, which should be the secret post sent by these armed elements. If Chen Mo's vision was not sharp, it would be really difficult to find this half of his head in the complex and messy ruins. If the elimination team came directly, they might have to escape as early as last time. After finding the location of the sentry post and reconfirming that there was no second sentry post nearby, Chen Mo quickly approached the collapsed building, avoiding the view of the other party. A one-way building that was supposed to be an office building. I don't know whether it was bombed or bombed by missiles. Only half of the whole long and narrow roof was left. The other half collapsed downward and piled up into an irregular slope of nearly 60 degrees. The broken concrete, broken steel bars, and all kinds of sundries in the building piled up together, making the slope uneven. The ruggedness is so complicated that it's impossible to climb. If you want to climb the remaining half of the roof, you can only go through the internal stairs. At this time, the iron door connecting the downstairs stairwell has been locked with an iron lock. It is impossible to go up quietly. The sentry who was sent to guard was sitting comfortably on a stool, lying on the wall about 1 meter high on the top of the building, with only half his head up. Their leader had met with the encirclement of the church before and escaped by chance. Since then, he has been very careful. Not only he often took them to move around in the area of Nisses, but also changed their hiding places. Every time he was stationed, he would arrange several secret guards on the necessary road 2 kilometers away from the periphery to guard against the attack of the church's extermination team. With this prudence, they have dodged several encirclement and suppression campaigns, and their forces are growing. Now there are nearly 100 people in the whole organization, which is the most powerful wave among all forces in the area of Nisses. Not long ago, after escaping the siege of the church again, they were cautious. Their leader simply took them to the most marginal area of Nisses, intending to stay away from the Libyan urban area and avoid the storm. However, although they were far away from the scope of church activities, they still did not relax their vigilance. As an experienced old secret sentry, Murray chose the only road leading to their new hiding place, which is wide vision and half collapsed. There is only one road leading to the building on the roof, and carefully locked the only way to ensure that no one can touch him without disturbing him later. Therefore, at this time, Murray is not worried about the safety behind him, and all his attention is on the road in the distance. Murray knew that they lived to this point by being cautious, so he would not let his guard down just because he got to the Nisses border. While Murray was watching the way, his back brain was suddenly cold, accompanied by skin tingling. A sharp chill went from his back neck to the brain, which made the cold hairs on his back stand up instantly. A layer of fine sweat suddenly seeped out of his forehead, quickly gathered into sweat drops and rolled down from his forehead. But he dare not move. Even if you don't look at him, you know that there is a sharp weapon on his back brain at this time. The point of the knife has pierced his skin. If he dare to change a little, the weapon will definitely stab his brain in a moment. The cold and stinging waves from the back of his head reminded him of his situation at the moment. So, although the alarm is in his hand, as long as he can move his finger to send out the alarm, but he dare not move. His body was rigidly fixed there. Murray was terrified, but at the same time, he couldn't help wondering. He had locked the only access to the top of the building. How did the suddenly appeared attacker behind him come to him silently? At this time, behind Murray, Chenmo held a samurai knife specially used by priests and put it on his back brain. The sharp point of the knife had cut the skin and pierced several millimeters. A string of red blood beads flowed out of the wound and drew a blood line down his neck. Chenmo, before bypassing Murray's vision, from other directions into the building, along the stairs quietly arrived at the top of the building, but found that the iron door of the stairway was locked. If Chenmo doesn't retain his strength, it's easy to kill or control him in an instant. Even if he is separated by an iron gate, Chenmo can also make him lose his ability to move in an instant. However, since Chenmo has always been fighting with the physical quality of the gray-robed priest, there is no need to expose his strength when encountering some problems. After the war, soldiers cleaning the scene may also be found flaws. So Chenmo did not come hard, but walked downstairs one by one along the stairs. At the same time, he observed the collapse of each floor. Most of the other sides of the floor were completely blocked by the collapsed wall. Chenmo walked down 4 or 5 floors, and then found a corridor that was not completely blocked. From here, he came to the outside of the building carefully, following the collapsed one. The steep and rugged slope formed by half of the building climbed to the top of the building. This slope is extremely dangerous for ordinary people. There are sharp broken concrete blocks and hard exposed steel bars all over the place, and there are many places that are not stable. If you are a little careless, you will be injured. With a steep slope of more than 60 degrees, you can hardly climb, and it is difficult to not make a sound in the process. However, this is not a problem for Chen Mulai, who is proficient in gun fighting. The analysis of gun fighting on battlefield environment is not only useful in battle, but also very effective here. Chen Mo carefully observed the whole slope once, using the data analysis ability of gunfight. He soon found out the best route from it, and came down to the rooftop smoothly without disturbing the secret sentry on the roof. This place is only about 2 kilometers away from the hiding place of the illegal goods trafficking organization. If you shoot at the top of the building, the sound of gunfire can be clearly transmitted to the past, so Chen Mo prepared a samurai sword for priests to take with him as early as he started. Chen Mo, who came to Murray's death successfully, did not kill him directly. Because he was escaped from the hands of these people many times, the church did not fully understand their intelligence. Chen Mo also planned to ask some specific information from the dark whistle. Chen Mo is not worried about his desperate resistance. Even if he is really brave and fearless, he will give his life warning to his friends. Chen Mo can pierce his brain before he starts. 3 minutes later, Chen Mo kicked open the iron door and walked downstairs. Behind him, Murray was still sitting on the bench as before, leaning against the wall. Only half of his head, which had been peeping out of the wall, fell on the ground. The rest of the head was just flush with the top edge of the wall, and the incision was flat, showing an extraordinary saber technique. These armed men are not resistance organizations. For the church, they are small and weak groups selling contraband for profit. But for the Forsaken of Joseph, they are real thugs. It is their favorite thing to snatch materials and contraband from the small and weak Forsaken. When the male meets their lucky one, they can survive. Once the female survivors are killed by him, they found that it was really impossible to survive, not to die. They will be imprisoned and become the tools for these thugs to vent their animal desires. Unless they are chased by the church and have to run away in a hurry, they will be tortured and tortured to death, and they will be subjected to endless abuse. This is one of the reasons why Chen Mo is so keen to eliminate these armed groups. From the mouth of the secret post, Chen Mo learned that the number of these armed elements is nearly 100, which can be said to be the largest armed group he has ever met. However, Chen Mo is very satisfied with this. The improvement of his gun fighting skills began to slow down. The main reason is that the enemy is too weak and the number is not large. With the improvement of his gun fighting skills, the effect of exercise will naturally deteriorate. What he needs now is more and more powerful opponents. This group of nearly 100 armed men is a good wave of prey for him. A few minutes later, Chen Mo stopped at the periphery of a large-scale shopping mall building that was still intact. The 5- or 6-story building looked silent on the outside, but Chen Mo could sense that a large number of people were moving inside the building, and several windows and the roof were also observed in the dark. These people are really very careful. They should be more careful than all the armed groups Chen Mo met before. No wonder they can escape the pursuit of the church again and again, and develop to the current scale. But his ending is the same. Chen Mo's observation in secret corresponds to the situation in the secret outpost where he cut off his head, and basically confirms the situation of these people. The mall building they hid was not small in area, and there were several exits. If they rushed in alone, they would not be able to prevent them from escaping. So Chen Mo's original plan of rushing in and killing them would not work. Then change the plan and call his hunting assistants to help. Chen Mo immediately found out the communication device and contacted the suppression team, who was still waiting for his information. A few kilometers is only a matter of minutes for all the vehicles cleaning teams. Even if they have made some detours to avoid each other's sight, they have arrived near the abandoned shopping mall in less than 5 minutes. Seeing that all the vehicles have reached the predetermined position, they will be exposed to the other party's sight further forward. Chen Mo, who has received the report of all the vehicles in place, gives a direct order to take action. Regardless of whether it will be exposed or not, 6 large white armored vehicles roared out of the hiding place and surrounded the mall building from all directions. When the people upstairs found the suddenly rushed armored vehicle, they hurried to give an alarm. All the exits had been completely blocked, and the escape route was completely blocked. "Boss, no. The people of the church have been killed. A lot of armored cars. All directions are blocked." A man with a weapon suddenly opened the door and rushed into an office. He shouted to a man with a fierce face and a beard who was sitting in the boss's chair. The bearded man, the leader of the armed forces, heard that his face had changed. He had just thrown a painting of treasure into his hands onto the table and stared at the intruders. "No warning from the perimeter outpost." "No, boss." The man with a beard saw his neck shrink and hurriedly said. The armored vehicles were not found by the brothers until they rushed near. When hearing this, the beard sank in his heart. It seemed that the other party was coming with preparation and had little hope of escaping. But then his eyes became sharp again. "Since we can't escape, we have to fight with them." Thinking of this, the man with beard raised his head and ordered his men to come. "Get all the brothers together. We have so many people that we can kill even if the Lord Priest comes. The winner is not sure." At the same time that the armed men in the building received the order to gather on the 3rd floor, Chen Mo, who walked out of the hiding place with the armored car at the same time, also walked downstairs to the mall building. Without any more concealment, Chen Mo walked towards the building in a smooth and above-board way. Naturally, his figure soon attracted the attention of the people in the building. "Boss, there is a priest coming towards the gate." The chief of the beard looked out carefully at the window and found that the church soldiers who rushed out of the armored car just hid behind the armored car to defend, but didn't mean to attack the building. In doubt, he heard the tense reminders from his side and turned his head to look down. In the square in front of the shopping mall building, a tall figure dressed in gray priest's uniform is slowly walking towards the building where they are. The leader of the beard looks at him, but finds that the other side's vision is also falling on him. Although he can't see clearly from tens of meters, the leader of the beard still feels cold in his heart. This is the most powerful force of the church, the Lord Priest. However, he quickly reflected that this was a good opportunity to eliminate the other side. Taking advantage of his nowhere to hide in the square now, he could just focus on the fire to kill him. Thinking of this, the chief of the beard hurriedly turned his head and shouted to the people around him. "Fire! Fire! Give me a fucking fight! Kill him!" With his order, a kind of subordinate, whether or not he was afraid of the priest, broke the glass with his teeth, stretched out his gun and pulled the trigger towards Chen Mo below. But just as they pulled the trigger, Chen Mo's figure accelerated. As he rushed towards the gate of the shopping mall, he made an irregular turning around. All the bullets from above were just dodged by him. No one could get close to him. Moreover, he didn't just dodge. At the moment before his body began to speed up and rush forward, Chen's hands on his side slipped 2 black pistols out of his cuffs, just in his hands. At the next moment, while Chen Mo is rushing forward and dodging, his double guns are also raised by him, aiming at the upper part of the front and repeatedly pulling the trigger. A bullet shot out of the chamber at a high speed and continuously. It crossed the distance of tens of meters in an instant and accurately shot into the militants who were attacking him in front of the upper window. There are many armed men upstairs, but none of the bullets can hit Chen Mo in the commanding attack. Chen Mo's bullets quickly reaped the life of an attacker in front of the window. When Chen Mo rushed into the building and disappeared into their sight, the shooting finally stopped. The chief of the beard turned around and found that in just a few seconds, more than 20 people who attacked in front of the window had fallen, and the first few people who attacked around him were all shot in the head and lying on the ground. Looking at the row of corpses lying on the ground, the leader of the beard only felt that his hair was dry, and he could not help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. However, Chen Mo has already rushed in. He can't help but flinch. Some of them turned around stiffly and looked at the 78 or 10 men standing behind them. The leader of the beard regained some confidence. The Lord Priest has come in, but no matter how fierce he is, there is only one person and we have nearly 100. I don't know whether I'm encouraging others or comforting myself, said the chief of the beard. Everyone find their own positions and get ready. As soon as he comes up, everyone will attack together. I don't believe he can hide. So many of us can shoot him into a sieve even if we shoot at random. After listening to his encouragement, all the people who were in a panic because Chen Mo shot more than 10 people in a flash finally stabilized. They began to look for cover according to his order. However, for example, those who were a little bit slower had to find a far place to stand. Everyone quickly found a good position and pointed the muzzle of the gun to the third floor from the second floor to where they were the escalator on the floor. They are going to face the fierce and famous Jehovah priest. Although no one chooses to flinch in order to survive, everyone's heart is extremely nervous at this time. They tightly grasp the weapons in their hands, stare at the escalator with wide eyes, and don't dare to blink for fear that Chen Mo will suddenly rush up from there and face them. A deadly bullet came in. However, after a long time, people's eyes were all staring, but there was still no movement in the escalator, let alone the shadow of Chen Mo. Did he know that they were numerous and had set up a good position, and he was afraid to come up when he saw that he couldn't make it? The Lord Priest is not so powerful as the legend. Just when the people could not wait for a long time, and the high tension began to relax, a long gray figure suddenly jumped down from the upstairs on the right side of the people. This was originally a shopping mall. In the middle of the building, there is a circular atrium connected up and down. Each floor has a circle of glass guardrails more than 1 meter high to prevent falling. Just now, Chen Mo suddenly turned over from the railing on the 4th floor and fell directly into the armed men who were aiming at the escalator beside the railing on the 3rd floor. In the process of body shape falling, Chen Mo's 2 guns began to fire, and the continuous gunfire echoed in the huge open atrium space. Without waiting for the reaction of all the people present, a bullet shot into several people's heads one after another from the air, bringing up a beautiful red and white blood flower mixed with blood and brain plasma. After falling into the crowd, Chen Mo's body shape did not stop at all. He quickly moved around in the crowd. 2 pistols in his hands were constantly changing their direction and posture, shooting at the most threatening targets in all directions. One of the gunmen didn't react to the incident. When they turned around with their rifles and pointed to Chen Mo's position, more than a dozen people were lying on the ground. Seeing Chen Mo's figure in a clergyman's uniform killing in the crowd, everyone was shocked and could not help but attack Chen Mo. Just because Chen Mo didn't appear from the position they expected, but jumped into the crowd directly from the side, their original layout was completely disrupted. Originally, the people hiding behind the pillars and other shelters are completely exposed to Chen Mo's gun. Chen Mo himself rushes into the middle of their crowd. The peripheral people can only see Chen Mo's figure flashing back and forth in the rioting crowd, but they can't accurately capture his figure, let alone aim at him. If they shoot at random, can they hit Chen Mo? I don't know. Their own people will definitely die. Chen Mo's bullets are all aimed at the peripheral militants. While his body shape is constantly moving to avoid the attack from his side, Chen Mo's double guns are continuously extended or tilted, firing at the surrounding area in various ingenious positions, but the people around him are always intact. All the bullets are shot out of the crevices of the crowd. Accurate, it was actually shot into the body of an armed man on the outside. Of the dozens of armed men on the 3rd floor, only about 120 people around Chen Mo were firing at him, but all of them were predicted in advance by him, calmly avoiding the past. Except that some of them were accidentally hit from time to time, Chen Mo was not hurt at all. At the beginning, The peripheral people were still anxious to find opportunities to shoot with guns, but soon they found that Chen Mo was attacking them in the peripheral area. They saw his companions fall down one by one, and the rest couldn't pay attention to attacking Chen Mo anymore. They hurriedly looked around for cover one by one, but there are only so many places to hide. In some places, there are 5 or 6 people crowded behind a pillar. However, many people have nowhere to hide, and they can only run around in panic, hoping Chen Mo's bullet won't hit them. Unfortunately, no matter how they dodge and run, they still can't escape being killed by Chen Mo one by one. The leader of the beard saw that the situation changed quickly, and he was shocked and angry. Chen Mo used those people around him as shields. If he went on like this, he would kill all the others one by one. Spread! Get the fuck out of here! The chief of the beard roared with a red face. Although the continuous gunfire rang out in the space, the militants under him heard his roar. Under the threat of death shadow brought by Chen Mo, those who are close to Chen Mo have been in a state of high tension. They always try to attack Chen Mo completely and selflessly until they hear the roar of the leader. They wake up as if in a dream. They continue to shoot at the same time and quickly step back. Unfortunately, how could their movements be faster than Chen Mo's? As they retreated around, Chen Mo quickly pulled out of their encirclement, dodging the bullets and rushing into the confused crowd. The tactics of meat shield were found out. Chen Mo simply changed the way of fighting. Instead of moving around in a small area, he was constantly shuttling among all the people. He was quick and flexible, and his whereabouts were mysterious. He was still in front of the muzzle of the gun a moment ago. When they wanted to pull the trigger, they had already lost his figure. Their muzzle of the gun had never moved as fast as Chen Mo. The previous arrangement was completely invalid. Although there were many of them, they could not be suppressed by fire at all. All the people on the scene were completely involved in the scuffle, but Chen Mo is firmly in control of the situation on the spot. The position, posture, and muzzle of dozens of people on the scene are all reflected in Chen Mo's mind. Whose muzzle points to him, whose muzzle is blocked by his companion, and who poses a threat to him. At the same time, Chen Mo's 2 guns fired at each other in succession, spitting hot bullets at the crowd and reaping one life after another. Bang! Bang! Chen Mo stretched his left hand forward and fired 2 shots in a row. He killed the 2 armed men with their backs against the stone pillars. He had just pointed the muzzle of the gun at him, but he had not yet been able to pull the trigger. However, his right hand stretched sideways and pointed to the right front. He pulled the trigger without looking at it and killed one of the armed men who was shooting at him in the right front. At the same time, Chen Mo did not stop. A lunge forward, dodging dozens of bullets from the left and right sides, Chen Mo's body to the right side flashed several bullets to his back. At the next moment, Chen Mo's arms crossed in front of him, and the 2 guns stretched out obliquely from under his ribs. After pointing to the left and right sides respectively, he did not return his head to shoot continuously. He killed several people who had just attacked him from both sides. Then he quickly turned around and looked at the gunman who had just shot at his back. At the moment, he was pulling a cartridge clip from his waist and putting it on his rifle. Chen Mo turned to look at him, and there was a flash of panic and disbelief on his face. Chen Mo is facing him with his back. He was attacking other people just now. How could he know that his bullets are gone? He didn't know Chen Mo's terror control of the battlefield. He knew that he had no bullets, and Chen Mo would not turn around after flashing his last attack, but killed the enemies on both sides first. Chen Muk has no time to let him wonder. Just as he turned around, his hands were pulled out from under his ribs and stretched out to the front. Bang! The gunman, who was changing the magazine, watched Chen Mo's muzzle flash a flash of fire, and then his eyes fell into endless darkness. At the next moment, Chen Mo's figure rushes out again, dodging the following bullets, and continues to shoot at the targets that pose a threat to him. Under the siege of these tens of people, Chen Muming felt the pressure. He had to fight with all his spirit. His brain was running and calculating at a high speed. At the same time, his gun-fighting skills were constantly improving in the fierce battle. Outside the building, John Peston sat in his car, listened to the incessant gunfire in the building, and raised his hand to look at his watch. It's almost time. The idea of John Peston had just come to life, and the violent gunfire that had been going on suddenly disappeared. Only the aftersound reverberated in the building. Well, there was a flash of surprise in John Peston's eyes, and the time seemed shorter than he expected. Then there was a clear image on his face. Chen Mo's strength was raised at a speed beyond imagination. It seemed that he was not far from the level of senior priests. He should be the fastest person in the history of the church to be promoted to a senior priest. Without too much exclamation, after the shooting stopped, John Peston came out of the car, stood by the car and looked at the building door. A group of soldiers who had been hiding behind the armored vehicles for vigilance rushed in after the gunfire stopped, but they didn't go to fight. Since Chen Mo joined the suppression team and took over the fight in an all-round way, their work has changed from fighting with the armed elements to encircling, driving, blocking, cleaning the battlefield, searching for and destroying the contraband, and John Peston as a result. They all became the assistant of Chen Mo's training of gun-fighting skills, and the frontal battle was occupied by Chen Mo's greed. However, the soldiers were so happy. In the past, they could not die a few people in a battle. Since Chen Mo joined in, the number of casualties has been greatly reduced, and even the battle is often completed without damage, so how can they not be happy? Now the gunfire in the building has stopped. It's obvious that Chen Mo has finished the battle. It's time for them to clean up the battlefield and search for contraband. Not long after a group of soldiers rushed into the building, Chen Mo, dressed in gray priest's uniform, came out of the gate. Looking at his cold and plain face, who could have thought that he had just killed nearly 100 people in the building alone, which could almost be said to be a massacre? "You're stronger again," John Peston said approvingly to Chen Mo, who came to the car. "According to this trend, it won't be long before you become a senior priest." Chen Mo shook his head slightly and walked to the other side of the car. "It's not that easy. There are not many large armed forces like this in Nisses. The general's small forces are too weak. They have not helped me much in training." After Chen Mo finished, he opened the door and got into the car. However, just as he was sitting in the car, reaching for the door and trying to close it, his vision was inadvertently looking out from the gap in front of the open door, and then his action was a meal. According to his eyes, through several collapsed ruins, there is a low building surrounded by walls and a rusty iron door close at a place more than 1,000 meters away from the abandoned shopping mall. It seems that there is no sign of human activities. However, Chen Mo's eyes are sharp. Though thousands of meters away, Chen Mo can still see the scene in the yard behind the gate through the gap on the iron door. Rows of green vines are growing orderly along the shelf, with many green fruits hanging on them. Someone planted a lot of vegetables in it. But the first thing that attracted Chen Mo's attention was not these, but the two figures that appeared behind a window on the second floor of the small building. At first, Chen Mo thought it was a secret sentry that had not been killed in other directions, but after a careful look, there were two middle-aged people, one male and one female, behind the window. Looking at their appearance, they were not like militants and captured survivors, but rather like two people living together. In addition to the vegetables planted in the yard below, it's obvious that these are two abandoned people living in the periphery of Nisses. It's just a coincidence that the gang of militants chose the abandoned shopping mall not far away from them to hide. If Chen Mo didn't kill them in time, they would be discovered by them sooner or later, and it would not be very good at that time. Just now, they were obviously shocked by the gunfire in the shopping mall, so they ran to the window to observe. As long as people didn't look for them intentionally, they couldn't easily find the two people hiding behind the window. Before Chen Mo looked over, the man's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly pulled the woman to hide, apparently finding Chen Mo's vision. After Chen Mo confirmed their identity through the vegetables in the yard downstairs, he took back his eyes and continued to close the door. All this happened in a moment. John Peston, who followed Chen Mo into the car, did not notice Chen Mo's abnormality. He continued the topic and turned to him. "You still have time. Take your time." Chen Mo nodded at his words but did not speak. In fact, in his mind, the soldiers of the church are the best training objects. After regular military training, their combat effectiveness is not bad, and they are all injected with Bayesian emotional inhibitors. They have no emotions and are not afraid of life and death, so they are the best fighting objects. It's just that it's not the time yet. Wait a second. After they got into the car immediately started, leaving behind the troops who were still cleaning the battlefield and heading back. In the small building in the distance, the middle-aged man hid behind the wall with his wife in his arms, his face full of despair. "That priest found us?" asked his wife in a slightly shaky whisper in his arms. The middle-aged man looks down at his wife in his arms, nods gently, and hugs her even harder. "Honey, it seems that this time we can't hide. 1,000 meters away, even if they run downstairs now, I'm afraid that when they open the door, the church car should have arrived. How could they have escaped the capture of a powerful priest?" The wife didn't speak, just lay quietly in the man's arms, hands caressing the man's chest. The nervous body also gradually relaxed. It seems that in the husband's arms she was not afraid of anything. Nowadays, this man is in a chaotic world of cannibalism. Every day, they hide in this small building carefully and live a life. They should be on guard of other abandoned people and armed elements. The group of armed elements with nearly 100 people who came not long ago makes both of them dare not sleep. They are afraid to be found out and end up in a life worse than death. These years have been very hard. They have been tired from the life of fear all day long. If they had not been accompanied by each other, they would have lost the courage to live. They had been ready to die at any time. Now this day finally came. After the initial panic, the two were soon relieved. Finally, it's time to be free. Two people are embracing quietly like this, enjoying the last warmth. But after a long time, they did not hear the car approaching or smashing the door or going upstairs. "Is it?" The middle-aged man quickly and gently pushed away his wife in his arms, and once again carefully peeped out half of his head from the window and looked towards the market, only to find that the white car had disappeared. He moved his eyes all the way to the front of the small building, but also did not find the trace of the car. It seemed that something occurred to him. The middle-aged man rushed to the window on the other side of the room. This time he finally saw the car, but at this time it was moving rapidly in the direction it came, towards the Libyan city in the center of Nisses. Leng watched the car drive away until his wife came to take his arm, leaning against him. He just came back to his mind. "Didn't he see us just now?" asked his wife in a soft voice. Slowly shook his head, the man said definitely. "He must have seen it. I could feel the obvious pause when he closed the door and his eyes. I could feel him looking at me though I was far away." His wife was puzzled when she heard the words. "Then how did he?" His wife also turned to look out of the window. The white limousine in the distance gradually moved away and was finally blocked by the ruins in the distance and could not be seen anymore. The husband shook his head, but there was a kind of guess in his heart, which he could not believe. "Maybe I was wrong." In the car, Chen Mo is also thinking about the abandoned people. He can think of the hardships and difficulties of their lives over the years. If they want to end all this, they must first overthrow the church's rule, restore the distorted society to normal, and enable all survivors of the war to live a stable and free life. However, it can't be completed overnight. Although Chen Mo can easily destroy the whole church by using steel battle clothes, the next step is that the collapse of order will only bring greater chaos and disaster. In many cases, it's not just a person's strong power that can do what he wants, especially the management of a country and a city. However, Chen Mo never stopped preparing. Although he spent most of his time fighting outside the city and honing his gun-fighting skills, the resistance organizations in the city were not idle for a moment. During this period, under the order of Chen Mo, Jarvis has been making every effort to help the resistance organizations find members, especially in the government and the military, which is the focus of development. The former members of the resistance organization were all the underprivileged people who were oppressed by the church. They were eager for freedom and wanted to overthrow the brutal rule of the church. In the past, there were only a few members of the resistance organization in the government and the army, and the highest position was just a person in charge of the free reading room who had no right. But he still played a significant role. It was under his cover that the underground base of the resistance organization could be successfully constructed and used. This shows the importance of government personnel. But for the resistance organization, the members that they can develop are basically like this. Those who are really in power cannot join the resistance organization. They are the vested interests of church rule. How can they help the resistance organization overthrow the fundamental of their rights? Chen Mo didn't expect to recruit two high-ranking government, military, and church personnel. It would be enough to absorb more small department heads like the head of the free reading room. With the help of Jarvis, the power of the resistance organizations in the government and the army expanded rapidly, and an invisible network was also developing rapidly in the dark. When the net is large enough, it can be closed. After the last extermination of the large armed groups, Chen Mo made several more missions, but the targets were all small forces of more than 10 or 20 people. Chen Mo even didn't want to shout at the troops and John Peston. He drove his own car first, killed all the targets quickly, and then went back to the city directly, leaving behind a mess waiting for the delayed troops to deal with and search and destroy the illegal product. In the evening, Chen Mo killed an armed group hiding near the Libyan city alone. He was driving back to the city and received a report from Jarvis. "Sir, 2 minutes ago, John Peston's wife was reported guilty of emotional crimes. Vice President DuPont is going to send you to lead the team to arrest her." Hearing this, Chen Mo can't help but think of the plot in the movie. John Peston's wife was arrested and cremated for emotional crimes, which was one of the reasons why he finally betrayed the church. When DuPont asked him to arrest his partner's wife, he really regarded them as a puppet without emotion. He could be at liberty to direct him. Chen Mo's eyes were cold when he thought of this. Soon, Chen Mo received an order from the church to go directly to John Peston's house and lead the team to arrest John Peston's wife. Chen Mo hung up the phone without expression, drove through the gate of the huge wall, entered the Libyan urban area, drove along the road towards the city center, and soon arrived at John Peston's downstairs. The soldiers of the search and arrest team had been waiting for a long time. Chen Mo, with a cold face, got out of the car and took the lead in the direction of John Peston's house. The other soldiers quickly followed. At the door of John Peston's house, 2 soldiers were already there. When they saw Chen Mo coming, they immediately saluted. Chen Mo stood in front of John Peston's house and nodded softly to the soldier leader on the side. 4 soldiers with rifles immediately came forward. At the moment when the leader's hands dropped, one of them burst open the door and 4 of them rushed into the room with guns. "Don't move! Don't move!" When the 4 rushed into the room, they found a woman standing not far from the door with her clothes on her back to them. John Peston, who was dressed in casual clothes, stood closer to the room, nearly 10 meters away from them. The 4 shouted "No move" and pointed their guns at the 2 people in the room. 2 of them came forward quickly and caught the woman. Seeing this, John Peston, with a soft expression, rushed to several people. "Stop! Stop! Get down! Get down!" The other two drank at once, and their rifles were pointing at John Peston, who was rushing in, ready to shoot. It's a pity that they are faced with the most powerful force of the church. Before they could pull the trigger, the senior priest John Peston had rushed to the front. John Peston rushed to the front of several people. He grabbed the rifle of the first man and twisted it hard. Then he heard the soldier make a scream. The rifle in his hand, together with the finger that was locked in the trigger, was twisted by John Peston for more than 90 degrees. His finger made a clattering sound. Even if it was not broken, it was definitely injured. But John Peston didn't stop. He grabbed the barrel of the rifle and made a strong push to the soldier's back. He only heard the sound of card. The soldier's arm with the gun was pinned from the front to the back, which was obviously beyond the range of the arm of the normal person. The soldier also made a louder scream. Obviously, the arm was pushed by John Peston's broken. Next, John Peston held the barrel of the gun and pulled hard to the front of him. The soldier, who had lost his fighting power completely, was pulled forward and fell down. His rifle also fell into John Peston's hands completely. At the next moment, John Peston, with his gun in both hands, slipped under his feet and quickly came to another soldier who was pointing his rifle at him. The rifle in his hand made an effort to fly out of his opponent's hand, and the rifle in his hand went through the gap of his helmet, pointing to the soldier's neck. "Don't shoot! This is legal entry," cried the soldier, who was under the control of John Peston. "We have an arrest warrant for your wife. She was charged with emotional crimes." John Peston was stunned by his words. He could not help but put down his rifle and slowly turned around to look at his wife, who was caught by two soldiers. John Peston's wife looked at him with a reluctant face. She broke away from the shackles of two soldiers, rushed to John Peston, and kissed him on the lips. "Get her! Take her now!" Two soldiers rushed forward and grabbed John Peston's wife again and dragged her out of the door. John Peston's wife shouted at him with a look on her face as he was dragged away. "Remember me." While John Peston stood there, his cold expression was confused and flustered. His eyes and his heart began to fluctuate violently. It seemed that he felt something. John Peston turned his head sharply and looked at the direction he had just rushed to. At the end of the corridor, two small figures were leaning together, standing quietly and looking at him. But his son, who was less than 10 years old, and his daughter, who was only 4 years old. They witnessed their mother being captured by soldiers, but they didn't cry or make any noise. Like John Peston, they were injected with Bojan. Their emotions were suppressed by drugs. Even if their relatives were captured, they could not feel pain. But in their hearts, they couldn't keep calm as before. A special feeling was growing in their hearts, which was strong. Even Boxian can't completely suppress the fluctuation. At a time when the family was speechless and in a complicated mood, Chenmo's tall figure came in from the door. First, he crouched down and picked up a folded black frock from the ground. It was John Peston's wife, who fell to the ground when she was caught. Chenmo held the clothes in one hand, while the other hand held out a box syringe slightly larger than the cigarette box from the pocket of the clothes, and handed it to John Peston. "I think you need this." John Peston looked down at the syringe in his hand, then looked up at the Chenmo in front of him. After a long time, he reached for the syringe, but did not take the medicine out of the box directly, but directly put it into his pocket. In the cold eyes of John Peston again, although he didn't speak, Chenmo could feel a kind of alienation. After all, he led the team to arrest his wife. Even with the suppression of Bojan, he couldn't have a bit of mustard for himself, but Chenmo didn't care about it. Seeing John Peston take the syringe, he nodded gently at him and turned away from here. This did not affect the affairs of the church. His wife had just been arrested, and John Peston, who was facing the punishment of cremation, still needed to continue his mission. A few days later, Chen Mo and John Peston set off for Mrs. V to carry out a mission to wipe out a group of more than 30 illegal drug trafficking organizations. Sitting in the car, the two have no words all the way. A kind of light sense of alienation lingers between them, no longer the former intimate acquaintance. John Peston's wife had been cremated yesterday, and John Peston, under the control of Bojan, participated in the execution of his wife without expression. However, since then there has been a lot less communication between the two men. If not necessary, John Peston has been cold and silent. Chen Mo didn't explain this much. When he got to the position, he got out of the car and rushed into the building. He shot 2 guns from his sleeve and fought with dozens of militants in the building. Although John Peston followed Chen Mo into the building, he didn't fight with him. Instead, he wandered around the building by himself. When passing by a wall, John Peston noticed that there was a row of bullet holes on it. He took off his right-hand glove, walked on, extended his arm to the right, and flicked it gently with his fingers. Kong and the wall have been touched, feeling different touch. The face looks as cold as before, but it seems that there are some differences. He stroked the wall a few steps forward, and suddenly John Peston, in his own shape, turned his head to look at the bullet hole under his finger. It seems that it's because of the shooting angle or some other factors. Unlike other bullet holes, it's just a pit on the wall. This bullet hole under his hand penetrates the wall directly, forming a through hole. A warm yellow light just shoots out of the hole, reflecting his pale fingers with a warm color. With his right hand back, John Peston curiously leaned his eyes up and peered through the hole behind the wall. At this point, John Peston's heart couldn't help jumping. There was a secret room filled with all kinds of art, decorations, and other prohibited items. But unlike the past indifference, John Peston's heart was full of wonder at this moment. So instead of calling directly for soldiers to clean up and burn down as usual, John Peston found the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets by himself and walked in alone. This is a totally closed room with an area of more than 20 square meters. Apart from the dark door just entered, there are no windows. Only a variety of desk lamps give off a faint yellow and soft light, illuminating this small secret room. The surrounding walls and a long row of tables in the middle are filled with all kinds of things: beautiful vases, ancient oil lamps, decorations of different shapes, and stacks of old and yellow but well-preserved books. The wall is also covered with a beautiful oil painting, and many posters and photos are pasted in the space. There are also many paintings that can't be hung, which are placed on the ground against the wall. It seems that this is their prohibited goods storage room. John Peston walked along the wall casually, like a child who had found the new world, fiddling with all kinds of things on the table from time to time. When he came to a record machine, he could not help but stop, curiously picked up a black rubber record on it, and saw 2 lines of words written in the blank part in the middle. Symphony No. 9. Ludwig van Beethoven. John Peston put the record back, fumbled for the stylus, and started the record player. The black record slowly turned, but no sound came out. John Peston did not care about it anymore, but turned to look at something else. He picked up a crystal ball from the table on one side. Inside the crystal ball, there was a beautiful tower, and many white things like snowflakes covered the bottom of the tower. John Peston slowly rotated the crystal ball curiously, and the snowflake below flowed with his action. When he rotated 180 degrees, all the snowflakes ran to the top of the tower. Then he quickly turned the crystal ball back, and the snowflakes on the top fell slowly, creating a beautiful picture of the tower in the snow. John Peston, who had never seen snow since the war, couldn't help being fascinated. He watched the snowflakes falling slowly over the tower, as if the scene in the crystal ball had become real, and he himself was in the scene. Just as John Peston was fascinated by it, a solemn and grand music suddenly sounded, which made him suddenly withdraw from the beautiful scene of crystal ball. This music at first, John Peston only felt that the music brought a depressed atmosphere, but as soon as he listened, he gradually strengthened and began to become dignified and powerful, with an overwhelming momentum, full of huge shock and tragic color. John Peston was totally attracted by music, standing in the same place, and all his mind was involved in the grand music. In the depressing and sad music, he seems to see countless people living under the dark rule, conservative oppression. Then the music began to become excited and solemn. Finally, some brave men were unwilling to oppress and revolt, leading the people to fight bravely for freedom and equality, great and solemn. Finally, they broke the shroud the deep and incomparable darkness of the world ushered in the light. John Peston felt that his heart was deeply touched, and his mood fluctuated with the music. The sound to the soul made his body tremble slightly. The hand holding the crystal ball unconsciously sent it away. The crystal ball whirled and fell, and the snowflakes flew around the tower. Touch! The crystal ball fell to the ground, broke, and the liquid in it flowed all over the ground, while John Peston was still immersed in the music, unable to extricate himself. This is a magnificent ode full of philosophy and heroism. Through this work, the author expresses the struggle will of human beings to seek freedom, and firmly believes that the struggle will end with the victory of human beings, and human beings will get joy, solidarity, and love. Although he had never heard of it before, he could clearly feel what the author wanted to express from the music and was deeply touched by it. He felt that his whole spirit seemed to have been sublimated. Under the dim light, he seemed to see the incomparable light and brilliance. In this exciting and magnificent music, John Peston only felt that he seemed to be in it. 2 lines of tears flowed down his cheeks. He read that his wife, who had been captured by the church and burned to death, was completely out of control. He knelt on the ground, covered his face with his hands, and wept. At this time, a squeak of friction suddenly sounded, followed by a sound of footsteps from the secret door of the chamber towards his position came. When John Peston released his hands, he saw a pair of black leather shoes stop in front of him and looked up, familiar with the gray priest's uniform, tall figure, and cold face. John Peston had a wry smile. "I didn't expect both of us would fall into your hands. Do it." In the secret room, it was Chen Mo who saw his emotional breakdown. After such a long time with Chen Mo, it was clear to John Peston that his strength had basically reached the level of senior priest. Even if there was a slight gap with him, he could not solve it in a short time. Now that Chen Mo has come here, he has apparently solved all the armed elements and started to search for contraband. The soldiers of the suppression team should have come in. As long as the sound of the gunshot is heard, they will be attracted. In normal times, John Peston is not afraid of these soldiers, but when he is fighting with Chen Mo, these soldiers can intervene, but they can deal with him. There is no small threat. What's more, he is not in a fighting state at all. He is not the silent opponent who just killed a group of militants and just warmed up. Knowing that it was useless to resist, John Peston, who was immersed in grief, was not in the mood to make a meaningless struggle anymore. He simply relaxed and knelt down on the ground, waiting for Chen Mo to start. Chen Mo looked down at the tears on John Peston's face. Instead of doing anything, he turned and walked out. "Come with me tonight." Chen Mo's voice sounded at the door. When John Peston looked up, he found that Chen Mo had gone out and the secret door of the secret room was closed by him. What does that mean? John Peston rose slowly from the ground, his face full of incomprehension. Shouldn't he catch himself without hesitation like last time, or just shoot himself on the spot? Their duties are to eliminate emotional crimes, and they are the most loyal and sharp sword of the church. If they find that their companions have betrayed the church and become emotional criminals, they will definitely arrest the betrayers without hesitation. If he had found out that Chen Mo had feelings, he would definitely take Chen Mo to the church. If Chen Mo resisted, he would directly kill him. Now when Chen Mo finds out that his mood is out of control, He just leaves a sentence and asks him to follow him to a place in the evening, which makes John Peston extremely puzzled. After his mood gradually calms down, a possibility flashes in his mind. Is he? Then, John Peston became entangled again. If it was really what he thought, Chen Mo, who indirectly killed his wife and personally sent her to the incinerator, would not be his enemy or even his comrades in arms, which made him a little difficult to accept. But calm down and think about it carefully. Even if he is faced with such a situation, there seems to be no other way except to catch and cremate according to the requirements of the church. The real killer of his wife is the church. Chen Mo is just an executor who can't disobey the orders of the church. Even he himself is not the same, except to watch his wife being captured and stand by. She can't do anything except being swallowed by the fire. Even under the suppression of Boxian, he could not feel the pain. Until today, he completely got rid of the control of Boxian and completely woke up. In this way, when John Peston blamed himself, his resistance to Chen Mo was reduced a lot. At the same time, he had some feelings of sympathy. Like himself, he was unable to resist the brutal rule of the church. His wife was only one of the tens of millions of sacrifices under the dark rule of the church. To completely end all this, he had to overthrow the autocratic rule of the church. However, as a senior clergyman, John Peston can't understand the power of the church anymore. It's hard to overthrow the church. Maybe Chen Mo can give him an answer tonight. At the end of the day, Chen Mo and John Peston seemed to have nothing to do with each other. They drove back to Libya without saying a word. That night, Chen Mo personally picked up John Peston and drove to the free reading room in Area 48. At this time, no one was reading in it. The whole corridor and one reading room on both sides were all dark. All the lights were off. Only one room at the end of the corridor was still on. The dim light dragged the shadows of the two people to a long time. The whole corridor was deep and quiet. John Peston was not afraid of it, but he mentioned the spirit secretly. After all, the previous thought was only his guess. He had to see it for sure. Following Chen Mo, the two walked all the way to the door of the room with the light on. Chen Mo pushed the door open and went in. John Peston, cheering up, walked into the room only to find that it was no different from other reading rooms. The podium in front of him, the tables under him, and the huge bookshelf on one side that filled the whole wall. At the moment, there was only a middle-aged man in the room, sitting behind the podium and looking down at the books. When they came in, they first looked at the priest's clothes on them. Their eyes stopped at John Peston, and then they looked at Chen Mo. They saw that he nodded slightly. Then they reached into their pocket, took out a remote control and pressed it against the bookshelf on one side. The middle part of the bookshelf then slowly separated to both sides, revealing a secret room inside. Chen Mo didn't call John Peston either. Since he walked in the bookshelf, when John Peston saw this situation, he has basically verified the inference in his mind. Chen Mo is really a member of the resistance organization. In addition to the resistance organization, he could not think of any other force that could build a secret chamber in this place. As for the church, there was no need for them to do more than that. Without hesitation, John Peston followed Chen Mo's step and walked into the secret room. However, he found that a new secret road was slowly opening up on the ground in front of the secret room and going underground. Seeing Chen Mo striding away, he went down the secret road and was about to disappear in front of him. John Peston hurriedly followed him. Down the stairway to the underground, around a corner, a lively underground space appeared in front of John Peston. Although there were not so many people in the daytime, there were still many people gathered around to discuss something. The atmosphere was free and warm. John Peston turned to Chen Mo, who was standing beside him. Chen Mo, who had not spoken to him since he met him in the secret room of Nissa's district in the daytime, finally spoke. "Welcome to the underground world," Chen Mo said with a smile on his cold face. John Peston, who had never seen Chen Mo smile before, couldn't help but get used to it. But this also proved his conjecture. Chen Mu is also an emotional, is it? Asked John Peston, looking at the environment and the people. This is the underground base of the resistance. The answer was not Chen Mo, but Jurgen, who came from the side. Reverend Kevin James, finally I've met you. Jurgen came forward, but instead of continuing to talk to John Peston, he first said hello to Chen Mo. In fact, this is Chen Mo's first visit to the underground base, but for his arrival, the senior members of the resistance organization have been looking forward to it for a long time. Chen Mo is the only one of their mysterious allies who knows exactly their identity. Previously, Jurgen personally arranged for ELO Pater to recommend Chen Mo to join the Lord Priest Reserve team. Until now, they met for the first time. Chen Mo nodded to Jurgen without any extra politeness and went straight to the subject. Is it arranged? Jurgen was not dissatisfied with Chen Mo's attitude. During this period, their mysterious ally has proved their terrorist strength and position. As the only member of the ally who showed up, Chen Mo, who was promoted from an ordinary soldier to a gray-robed priest in a short period of time by virtue of his top talent, strong strength, and the secret operation of the organization behind him. In their ally forces, they are also absolutely the existence of the core high level. And according to Arlo Pacher, it's estimated that Chen Mo will soon become a senior priest. The horror of his ability can be seen. Chen Mo is not only strong in his own strength, but also amazing in his ability to develop members. Most of the members who developed in the government and the army during this period were Chen Mo's hands. Now he has brought in John Peston, the senior priest, a low patch who was recruited by Chen Mo's organization, and Chen Mo, who is about to become a senior priest. There are 3 senior priests in their resistance organization. In the past, Jurgen couldn't even think of it. So in front of Chen Mo, Jurgen only had gratitude and respect. When he heard Chen Mo's question, Jurgen nodded. It's arranged, come with me. Jurgen said, immediately turned around and took the 2 forward. John Peston didn't know what they were talking about, but he kept up with them. He was also curious. Why did Chen Mo bring him here? It seems that it's not just asking him to join the resistance. Jurgen led the 2 men down a section of the underground space to a door. Jurgen glanced back at John Peston and with a smile opened the door. John Peston was puzzled by Eugene. Seeing that both of them had gone in, he hurriedly followed them. When he entered the room, John Peston could not help but widen his eyes. His face was shocked. There was a sofa facing the door. A familiar figure was sitting quietly on it, smiling at him. Paget. John Peston was surprised to call out the other side's name. It was his original partner, the Lord's senior priest, Arlo Pacher. Long time no see, Peston. After the change of partners, both sides are busy with the task, which is really rare. Chen Mo, a rare genius that the church attaches great importance to, is just a member of the resistance organization. After all, he just joined the church. How could John Peston have never thought that ELO Pacher, who has been with him for so long, was also a member of the resistance organization? It seems that the resistance organizations that have been despised by the church are not as weak as they think. When he was shocked by the strength of the resistance organization, Chen Mo's voice broke his mind again. You can reminisce later. I think someone is more eager to see you. Is there anyone else in a hurry to see themselves? John Peston was puzzled by his words, but before he could think about it again, a figure suddenly rushed towards him. When he suddenly found out that someone was coming, John Peston, even though he was alert like a conditioned reflex, turned around quickly. His muscles were tense, and he was ready to fight back. But when he saw the person's face clearly, he suddenly froze there and let the other party rush over and rush into his arms. Feeling the warmth from the soft body in his arms, the delicate arms tightly around his back, and the cooling of his chest, John Peston's tight body gradually relaxed, but his heart was more excited, and the accumulated feelings of missing, guilt, self-blame, and so on burst out. John Peston raised his hands and hugged the man in his arms for fear that she would disappear again. At the moment, the woman nestled in his arms is his wife, who has committed emotional crimes and was arrested by Chen Mo himself. He also saw her walk into the incinerator, and she should have died. "Vivian, you still alive?" After a long time, it seemed that it was not a dream. John Peston looked down at his wife, holding his silent tears in his arms, but his voice was shaking. With his wife's story and Jurgen's addition, John Peston finally understood the whole story. It turns out that the resistance organizations were actually as weak as he knew, and there were not many people in the government and the army. Until the emergence of Chen Mo's mysterious organization, with their help, their forces began to develop gradually in the military and government departments, among which the execution department in charge of the emotional crime incineration process is the most important. Although there are not many people in the incineration execution department, it is not a simple thing to recruit all of them into the resistance organization. However, after a long period of efforts, most of them have been completed. They would have continued to develop in a step-by-step manner and could be fully controlled in a short time. At this time, his wife Vivian was reported guilty of emotional crimes. After receiving the order, Chen Mo usually had to lead a team to arrest him. On the other hand, he took a huge risk to speed up the control of the incineration execution department and finally completed the control of the whole department before execution. The computer system was also controlled by the mysterious organization of Chen Mo. When he was at the scene, Vivian did walk into the incinerator, but the turbine didn't ignite at all. The observation window of the cremation cabin is equipped with a transparent screen. In fact, the cremation scene is totally fake, just a video picture. After the execution, Chen Mo will go out in person to find an opportunity to transfer people secretly. Vivian herself didn't know until the execution was over. When the cabin door was opened again, she thought it was equipment failure. The transparent display screen on the observation window became opaque when it was started, so she didn't know it was acting. When she saw Chen Mo, who had been caught by her own hand again, she gave Chen Mo a fierce stare. She didn't fully understand until Chen Mo took her to the underground base, and her view of Chen Mo was completely reversed. Knowing the whole story, John Peston's eyes to Chen Mo changed completely. His eyes were filled with deep gratitude and guilt. However, he was still blaming and hating Chen Mo before. If it wasn't for Chen Mo, he would really lose his favorite person forever. While appreciating Chen Mo, John Peston's hatred of the church became stronger. What emotional crime is basically to kill human nature, turn people into slaves without ideas, willing to be oppressed by the church. Now he has awakened, and there are also like-minded partners such as Alo Pater, Chen Mo, and Resistance Organization. He must overthrow the church and end all the twisted and disordered things. In fact, the infiltration of incineration implementation department is not as dangerous as Jurgen said, but he does not know a lot of specific things, so it is very dangerous in his eyes. Since the cooperation between Chen Mo and the Resistance Organization, the forces of the Resistance Organization in the military and government departments have expanded rapidly. In addition to Jarvis and resistance organizations in full observation, screening, and absorption, Chen Mo also made great efforts. Just rely on Jarvis to find out the emotional criminals hidden in the military and government departments. After all, they are too limited and passive. Chen Mo simply asked Jarvis to monitor and analyze the relevant personnel of the two departments, and judge the possibility of joining the resistance organization after their emotional recovery. If they meet the requirements, Chen Mo will come out in person and use the help of spatial powers to quietly replace the potion on them with the same appearance but different ingredients, which does not have the effect of inhibiting emotions, so that they can recover their emotions. Most people, after their dull and monotonous life, suddenly recover their emotions and normal thinking, and will not take the initiative to continue injecting Boxian. Even if they know the fate and risks of emotional crimes, they are still reluctant to return to the numb puppet state before. After a period of observation and confirmation, Jarvis and the Resistance Organization can be brought under their control by the Resistance Organization's personnel. In this way, with the cooperation of Jarvis, the Resistance Organization and Chen Mo, there are more and more government and military personnel in the Resistance Organization, and an invisible big net is rapidly expanded under Chen Mo's covert control. Now, it's almost time to close the net. In fact, John Peston was also able to recover his emotion and normal thinking with the help of Chen Mo. In the movie, John Peston's wife was sparked, and he didn't wake up but just planted a seed in his heart. Until 4 years later, he killed his partner for many years, Arlo Pacher, met Mary O'Brien, and experienced some coincidences, which really got rid of the control of Bojan and returned to normal thinking. In other words, this time he should not have awakened, but with Chen Mo's participation, it is different. Although the emotion of Peston, who has been injected with Bojan, has been suppressed, it can be seen from Chen Mo's response when he arrested his wife that even if there is drug suppression, he still has certain feelings for his wife, although this feeling is not so strong under the drug suppression. With years of brainwashing, he chose to compromise under the command of the church and watched his wife being cremated without resistance or pain, but the wave in his eyes exposed his inner struggle. The drug suppression of emotion is not absolutely firm, and strong stimulation will still cause internal fluctuations, but it will become weaker and weaker under the drug suppression. As long as we continue to use Boxian, with the passage of time, this fluctuation will gradually subside, be completely suppressed by the drug again, and return to the original state of numbness. What Chen Mo has to do is to cut off this kind of repression and let his emotions burst out completely when the current fluctuations are most intense. Once the person who has lost his emotion feels the strong, rich, beautiful, and hot emotion again, he will not be willing to go back to the life without emotion and cold numbness. When Chen Mo arrested Vivian at his home that day, he took out John Peston's Bojan, Serin, and secretly changed it into a copy of the space. In fact, it's not entirely fake. In order to prevent him from recovering his emotion in advance before Vivian's execution, Chen Mo broke his plan impulsively. He calculated the dosage and only replaced the last medicine to let him recover his emotion after the execution. The whole thing is very smooth. Now, all the people in Chen Mo's plan have arrived at the same time. There are 6 senior priests in black in the church. Now 2 of them have joined them. In addition, Chen Mo, the most powerful of the ordinary priests in gray, actually has the strength of senior priests, not even weaker than John Peston. The strength of the 3 of them together is very strong. With a large number of people in the government and the army, the time is ripe to take over the net. What happened and what was discussed in that room of the underground base that night, no one knew except a few people present. Only the next day, Vice Chairman DuPont had another report on his desk. Du Peng, vice chairman of the church and the senior leaders of the whole church, attached great importance to Chen Mo, the most gifted super genius in the history of the church. After Chen Mo became a gray-robed priest, they arranged a partnership between Chen Mo and the most powerful of the senior priests, John Peston. In addition to letting John Peston help and guide Chen Mo, it also meant that John Peston needed to visit Du regularly paying reports on Chen Mo. That day, DuPont received the report of John Peston again. In previous reports, John Peston has mentioned that Chen Mo's strength is rising rapidly, and he may soon reach the level of a senior priest. So when he opened this document, DuPont could not help but look forward to it. Could this church's peerless genius reach the strength of senior priests in such a short time? Today's report is longer than ever. DuPont can't help but read it carefully. The more he looks down, the brighter his eyes become. It turns out that in the report, John Peston said that in the short time after the last report, Chen Mo's strength had been greatly improved again, not only reaching the level of senior priests, but also surpassing him and becoming the strongest of all the Jehovah's priests. Moreover, Chen Mo has killed thousands of armed emotional prisoners since he became a gray-robe priest. It's a great achievement. DuPont is very satisfied with this. The church has another big killing tool since then. Their rule has become more stable. Put down the report, happy DuPont when even ordered to summon Chen Mo. In DuPont's majestic office, Chen Mo meets the villain boss in the movie. It's also the first time the two met. In the movie, he took over the church after the Pope died and became the supreme ruler of Libya. Even now, DuPont is only one person. Generally speaking, the Pope doesn't care about specific administrative affairs. All affairs are entrusted to DuPont, so he is now the actual controller of the whole Libya. The supreme force of the church, the Lord Priest, is completely under his control. All the recruitment, promotion, and actions of the priests are under his control. Passing through two solid wood doors that are 4 meters high, Chen Mo enters the place where Libya's highest power is located. This is a huge space with a floor height of more than 5 meters. There are dark, tall columns between the gray walls around. 12 soldiers in black leather windbreaker and full closed helmet are standing against the wall with guns, looking solemn and solemn. In this huge and square space, there is only a broad desk and a big and heavy solid wood seat at the back of the chair. A big, square-looking middle-aged man is sitting in the chair, looking at Chen Mo coming in with profound eyes. He is the actual controller of Libya, Vice Chairman DuPont. Behind him, there is a huge T-shaped hole occupying the whole wall. Through the hole in the middle, you can clearly see the Libyan city with tall buildings outside. This office is located on the high floor of the church building, the tallest building in Libya. From here, you can have a panoramic view of Libya, even the distant Nisses. When the sun is setting, the golden sunshine has covered the whole city with a layer of gold, which is very magnificent and magnificent. Sunlight comes in from this T-shaped hole, adding some brightness to the slightly dark space. A golden beam of light came from behind DuPont and wrapped him in it, adding to his sanctity and majesty. Looking at the solemn DuPont behind the desk in front of him, Chen Mo motionless sensed his state. Sure enough, there was a sneer in Chen Mo's heart. The Speaker of the Church, Vice Chairman of Libya, DuPont, is also an emotional prisoner. It's not appropriate to say that. The law of Libya is not equal to everyone. As the supreme ruler of Libya, the Pope and members of Parliament are not bound by the law. The Pope's words are the law. He said that feelings bring about war, so having feelings becomes a crime. If members of Parliament break the law, only the Pope has the right to punish them. So the so-called feeling guilt is not binding on the highest rulers of their churches. Emotional crime itself is just a way they come up with to destroy humanity and eliminate resistance in order to stabilize their rule. Naturally, they don't need to become puppets without emotions like the common people and the ruled. They usually pretend to treat the people at the lower level equally and without feelings. In fact, they are acting like politicians. The people at the top have no supervision and no one can punish them. If they are found by the people below carelessly, it's better to kill them directly and maintain the image of the outside world. Thank you for coming, Reverend. I think you know who I am. Dupeng sat on the broad and square solid wood chair behind the desk and said to Chen Mo with dignity, "Yes, sir." Chen Mo's face was cold and serious, and he replied in a deep voice, "You are Vice President DuPont, the third president of the Lord's Church, the spokesman of the Pope." Dupeng didn't respond to his words. His majestic eyes were always on Chen Mo's face, and he watched his reactions carefully. To be frank with you, Rabbi, I've been told that you're so overqualified that if someone triggers emotion, you'll find it almost immediately. Staring into Chen Mo's eyes, DuPont said slowly. And since you became a priest, there have been more than 1,000 emotional offenders killed by you. I have a good record, sir. Chen Mo's eyes are as calm as water. His face is always unsmooth, neither happy nor worried. Like all the people injected with Boxian, he has no emotional fluctuation. It seems that 1,000 people are just a number in his eyes, without any psychological burden. Looking at Chen Mo's reaction, DuPont nodded with satisfaction. This meeting did not last for a long time. Encouraged Chen Mo, expressed the Pope and the Church's value for Chen Mo, and continued to carefully observe Chen Mo's response. After confirming that Chen Mo is a firm fighter with firm faith and loyalty to the Pope and the Church, DuPont was satisfied to let Chen Mo go, ready to accept the Church's strength test. After many days of crazy fighting, Chen Mo's gun-fighting ability at this time has surpassed that of John Peston. There is no problem in passing the senior priest's test. After the strength test proves that Chen Mo's strength has indeed reached the level of senior priests, and the accumulated achievements also meet the requirements for promotion of senior priests, DuPont should even sign the order to promote Chen Mo to senior priests. For many years, the top-level military force of the Church has been only 6 senior priests. Today, the 7th is finally born, and it is also the fastest senior priest promoted since the founding of the Lord Priest. When he left the church building that day, Chen Mo's frock was changed into a black senior priest's robe. Although the style was the same, it was more powerful and handsome than the original gray system. The most important thing was that it symbolized higher rights and status. You should know that in addition to the original elders of the church, the new members of the parliament are all added by senior priests. Now there are 2 members of the parliament who are promoted from the original senior priests when there is a vacancy in the parliament. Therefore, the senior priests are not only the highest law enforcers under the parliament, but also the only way to promote the real power holders. After all, only Parliament can be regarded as the ruler of Libya and ignore the existence of law. When Chen Mo came out of the church building in black high priest's uniform, he was just seen by Brant, who had just returned with Arlo Pater. Looking at Chen Mo's black frock, Brent's eyes widened and his face was even more shocked. How can? He has become a senior priest. How could it be? His eyes were fixed on Chen Mo's dream senior priest suit, and Brant's jealousy and unwillingness were burning like flames, constantly burning his heart. That should be mine. Why give it to him? Isn't it to kill more ants like emotional criminals? I don't like it. Just as Brent was burning with envy, Elo Pacher on one side suddenly said, "Don't look at it. We can't compare it with such a genius." Brent was awakened by the voice of Arlo Pacher and quickly adjusted his expression so that no one could find out his abnormality. But then, he suddenly seemed to find something. He turned his head sharply and looked at Arlo Pacher. The tone of his voice just now seemed Elo Pacher did not notice Brent's abnormality. Seeing him turn around, he turned his head and went on to the building first. Brent followed Arlo Pacher, looking back carefully at the tone of his words, while his eyes scanned him back and forth. All of a sudden, Brent's eyes stopped at the pocket of Arlo Pater's uniform waist. As Pater walked, the opening of the pocket opened slightly from time to time, and there seemed to be something in it. Brent quickly fixed his eyes on it. When his pocket opened again, Brent finally saw what was inside. It turned out to be a book banned by the church. It must have been found in the mission just now. The contraband found in these missions should have been destroyed on the spot or handed over to the evidence group, but he put it into his pocket without permission. Combined with the tone in which he had just spoken, Brant had a startling inference in mind. Elo Pacher, a senior priest, is an emotional offender. But when he was shocked, Brent couldn't help being happy. It's much more important to find an emotional offender hidden in the top of the church than to kill 1,000 ordinary emotional criminals. With this credit, he can certainly become a senior priest. In this way, Brant's heart was filled with excitement, and he could not help but smile at the corner of his mouth. Reverend E.L.O. Pater, let's use you as my access ladder. Although Brant was excited, he didn't show it until he handed in the task and confirmed that Arlo Pater didn't give the book to the evidence office. Then he left him and went to Vice Chairman DuPont's office alone. Originally, a junior clergyman like Brent was not qualified to ask to meet DuPont, but it was said that important matters related to the church should be reported. DuPont met him. After meeting, Brent reported his findings directly to Vice Chairman DuPont. DuPont's face also changed when he heard it. If it is true that the senior priest, Arlo Pater, is an emotional offender, as Brent said, then things will be serious. This shows that the resistance organization, which was considered to be scabies, has extended its influence to the top of the church. Rather than what they thought before, just a group of low-level people, the people's inability to resist is so simple. Although E.L.O. Pater is a senior priest, as long as someone reports, he will be searched as required, and the significance behind the incident is even more unusual. So DuPont should even order Brent to lead the team to search E.L.O. Pater's home. Blant, who appeared to be quiet, walked out of DuPont's office with joy and cheerfully called in people to head for Arlo Pater's house. After Brent left, DuPont thought for a moment and ordered Chen Mo and John Peston, who had already returned home, to rush to the door of Arlo Pater's house immediately. When Brent and his troops arrived, they together searched the Arlo Pater's house. After all, E.L.O. Pater was a very powerful senior priest, and he could not be suppressed by a common priest and dozens of common soldiers. When Blance proudly led his team downstairs to Arlo Pater's house, he saw Chen Mo and John Peston waiting for a long time, which made his face suddenly gloomy. Chen Mo, in particular, his black frock made Brant's jealousy burn again. Obviously, it's the credit I found. Why should I give it to him? Brent was confident that his strength was no less than that of the senior priests. All he lacked was opportunities and achievements. He had thought that even if E.L.O. Pater wanted to be captured, he would also try to force him to fight so that he could kill him himself. That is to say, it has proved its strength. E.L.O. Pater had just been arranged for marriage by the church. With a wife, it was a good bargaining chip. He could directly put the accusation of emotional crimes on her, start against her, and force E.L.O. Pater to fight. He had planned well, but when he saw Chen Mo and John Peston waiting downstairs, he knew that his plan could not be completed. These two people are obviously sent by Vice Chairman Dupeng. They are not sure about his strength, but they are also worried that he will come in disorder. After all, the previous report is just one side of his story, but he sent 2 senior priests above him at once. How can he lead the team? This is clearly to deprive the operation of command. In front of Chen Mo and a group of soldiers, Brant tried to suppress the anger in his heart and led the team forward as if nothing had happened. "How are you here, Reverend Baston, Reverend James?" John Peston did not speak, but Chen Mo looked at him and said in a cold voice, "Vice Chairman DuPont is afraid that you may not be sure. Let's help. Since you are here, let's take action." Chen Mo's tone was very calm, but Brant was angry. He said that assistance was good, but you came straight up and took over the command of the action. It was almost like assistance. He had to hand in the title of team leader before he could get it, which made Brant hate. Brent was very dissatisfied with DuPont's order for Chen Mo and John Peston to intervene. He had to share his hard work with others, but he had to obey DuPont's order. After all, he was a whistleblower, and he took part in the arrest himself. Finally, he caught Arlo Pater, which was also his greatest credit. He just wanted to force him to resist, but his plan to kill him again died. Trying to control his emotions, Brent lowered his head and clenched his teeth and followed Chen and Mo to Arlo Pacher's house. Seeing Chen and Mo standing at the door side by side, Brent had to tell the soldiers to come forward and hit the door. Although he was giving orders, it was not the same as leading his own team. Now, he was the lowest of the three priests to command the soldiers. It's like the difference between driving by yourself and being a driver for others. I didn't see the two senior clergymen standing there, not to say a word, just mastering the overall situation. Brent's trying to suppress the inner anger. You wait. After this time, I will certainly become a senior priest. You must not fall into my hands like Arlo Pacher. Not to mention how in Brent's heart, with a touch, the door was knocked open by soldiers, and a dozen armed soldiers rushed in. Don't move. Stay where you are. After a lot of noise and confusion, the room was calm again. Chen Mo and John Peston just stepped in calmly. Brent watched the two men's dignified appearance and followed them with their teeth clenched. In the room, a dozen soldiers were fanning themselves, aiming their guns at the two people sitting on the sofa in the living room. When the three came forward, several soldiers moved to one side with their guns, making room for the three. However, the room is very crowded with more than 10 people, so the space available is limited. Chen and Mo come forward and take a stop there. There is no room for Brent at all. In the face of two senior priests one level higher than him, Brent had to stand behind them silently, but his back fist was tightly clenched, and his eyes were full of hatred. Brent's little movements can't hide Chen Mo's keen sense. Even if his back is facing him, Chen Mo can clearly feel his every move, but Chen Mo is not in the mood to consider his feelings. Glancing at the Pope's speech on TV, Chen Mo turned to look at Arlo Pacher, who was sitting on the sofa, and said in a cold, expressionless voice, "Reverend Pacher, Brent has reported that you have concealed contraband. According to the regulations, we are going to search your residence now. Please cooperate." Sitting on the sofa, Arlo Pacher turned his eyes and looked back at Brent through the gap between Chen Mo and John Peston. Brent did not flinch to meet his eyes, but to his surprise, Arlo Pacher did not look at his eyes with anger or hatred, but rather plain, seemingly without any emotion. It's quite different from what Brent imagined. He is supposed to hate himself when he is exposed by himself. How can he not react without any emotion? No emotion. Brent could not help but be surprised. There was a bad feeling in his mind. But Chen Mo didn't care what he thought, so he waved and ordered a group of soldiers to start searching. The space in the room is limited. Chen Mo didn't let dozens of soldiers on guard come in. It's enough to have dozens of soldiers in the room. There are two senior priests here. Don't worry about the resistance of Arlo Pacher. A dozen soldiers immediately put away their weapons, entered each room separately, and searched carefully. Brent wanted to search it in person because of his uneasiness, but he just raised his foot and was stopped by Chen Mo before he stepped out. "Reverend Brent, you don't have to go in person." Brent was not willing to stop like this, he said with a straight face. "I'm afraid they will miss something, or I." But before he finished, Chen Mo interrupted him directly. "Priest Brent, as a whistleblower, you should avoid suspicion." Chen Mo's voice was cold, and he scolded him with his superior's voice. Then he turned to John Peston. "Reverend Peston, since Reverend Brent is not at ease, please search for it yourself." John Peston, with a slight nod, turned away from Brent and walked into the room. As the strongest of the Lord's priests, John Peston has the best observation ability and intuition, and the best mission record all the time, so Brent can't continue to insist on his own search. However, his unease became more intense, but he could not tell where the problem was. In the anxious wait, the search was soon over, but it turned out to be nothing. "Impossible. Let me search again." Brent couldn't accept the result. He saw Arlo Pacher take a book out of the church building with his own eyes. At first, he was very excited. He was looking forward to taking this opportunity to make a great contribution to the promotion of the senior priest. At this time, he heard that nothing was found. Brant could not help but disbelieving and loudly questioning. Just after he finished speaking, the scene was suddenly quiet, and all the people in the room, including Chen Mo and John Peston standing in front of him, a low Patch and Mary O'Brien sitting on the sofa, and the soldiers who had finished the search around him all focused on him. John Peston has searched it himself. As a whistleblower, he should have avoided suspicion, but he insisted on searching by himself. This is very abnormal in itself. Moreover, his reaction just now is not the same as that of people using Bayesian. It's more like that of emotional criminals. What's the matter? Brent didn't notice his abnormality. Seeing all the people looking at him, he asked with some unknown words. Chenmo looks at him coldly and steps forward to him. Reverend Brent, I doubt you have feelings now. Please stand still and cooperate with the inspection. What? How can I? Brent's face was unbelievable, and he couldn't help but raise his hand to explain. Who knows that in the moment when he raised his hand, more than a dozen soldiers pointed their rifles at him. John Peston slipped 2 classroom pistols out of his sleeve and pointed them at his key point. Brant's sweat came down in a flash and was pointed by a dozen rifles and double guns of senior priests. He dared not move any more. His hands were frozen in the air, and he did not dare to raise them or put them down casually, so he was inclined in the air. Yes, is there something wrong? Chen Mo ignored him and went to him and put his hands on the pockets on both sides of his system. The touch between his waist and abdomen told Brent that there was nothing in his pocket, but he found that the expression of Chen Mo in front of him suddenly changed. Just when he felt wrong, Chen Mo had stretched out 2 fingers and put them into his pocket. Before Brent reacted the next moment, Chen Mo's fingers had been pulled out, but between his 2 fingers there was a palm in his hand little book. Priest Brent, you're under arrest. In DuPont's office in the church building, Chen Mo stood at DuPont's desk with John Peston and Arlo Pater, while Brent, who was handcuffed, was held by 2 soldiers with his arms. Reverend James, what's going on? DuPont sat at the back of his broad desk, looking at the handcuffed Brent. Sir, according to your order, we searched the residence of Padge and found no contraband. Chen Mo's tall and slender body stood upright in front of Dupeng, with no emotion on his cold face. But during this period, Priest Brent's behavior was somewhat abnormal. He first ignored suspicion and wanted to participate in the search in person as a whistleblower. DuPont heard that there was also a reaction here. His first decision to arrange a search led by Brent was not safe enough. Fortunately, he later ordered Chen Mo and John Peston to help out because he was worried about Brent's strength. And when the search was over and nothing contraband was found, Priest Brent's reaction was even stronger, and I felt anger in him. Then, while searching him, I found this on him. Chen Mo said, took out a book from his pocket and put it in front of DuPont. DuPont looked down at the cover of the book. Instead of reaching for it, he took a deep look at Brant, who was held by 2 soldiers. The chill in his eyes made Brant feel cold. Just when he wanted to open his mouth to explain, DuPont directly looked away, looked at Chen Mo and asked in a deep voice, Reverend James, what do you think of this? Chen Mo drives away the old man die in his mind, which makes his face cold and slow. I asked the soldiers who were on duty with Padge today. According to them, Padge never left them alone today, and they did not find him exposed to contraband. It's Priest Brent who wasn't in their sights for a while. As soon as Brant wanted to argue, he was interrupted by DuPont's majestic eyes. Reverend James, please continue. Chen Mo nodded and continued. Priest Brent reported that he had a contraband book, but this book was found in him. It was related to the abnormal behavior that he always wanted to participate in the search in person. Therefore, I suspect that Priest Brent was deliberately accusing Priest Pater of falsely accusing him of trying to put this book into his home when he led the team to search, to plant and frame. But what he didn't expect was that, sir, you also arranged for me and Pastor Peston to participate in the search, and didn't give him the chance to frame Pastor Pater. Brent, ignoring the rest, argued quickly. Sir, he's lying. He put that book in my pocket. They are all in one. DuPont didn't stop Brent from talking this time. When he finished, he looked at Chen Mo and John Peston beside him seriously, obviously to listen to their explanation. This time Chen Mo didn't speak, said John Peston. Sir, we were all at the scene when James searched. He just took out the book with 2 fingers. His hands and wrists were exposed. He didn't reach into his pocket completely. He couldn't take the book out of his sleeve and put it into Brent's pocket by using the hidden gun technique. Besides me and Padge, the soldiers on the scene saw it and could testify. DuPont sniffed the words and nodded. He believed what John Peston said. DuPont himself is also proficient in gun fighting. Naturally, he knows that gun hiding can hide books in his sleeve, but in front of so many people, it's impossible to take them out quietly without being found. Therefore, Brent's words are just regarded as his reckless denial. Brent was in a hurry to see DuPont accept John Peston's statement, but it was true that Chen Mo had no chance to pop books out of his sleeve and put them in his pocket in full view of the public. But he could be sure that his pocket had nothing when Chen Mo pressed it first, and he did not know how Chen Mo put the books in it. It's magic, isn't it? Would DuPont believe it? Just when Brent was speechless, Chen Mo turned to him and said in a deep voice, "Just now, Reverend Brent said that we are all together, and I agree with that." Brent's heart is happy. Is he going to admit it? Yes, we are all faithful priests of the Lord's church and devout followers of the Pope, but you, Brent, are not in the same camp as us. Chen Mo's voice, if I'm right, you should be a core member of the resistance organization, right? You're doing this to break down the clergy from within. What's your next plot? DuPont's pupil shrank, but Brent suddenly changed color and shouted excitedly, "You are bleeding. I think you are the one who resists the organization." Brent's reaction makes DuPont frown, and he doesn't need to use a motion monitor. He can conclude that Brent is an emotional offender. Sir, it seems that we all underestimated the strength of the resistance organizations. We don't know the extent to which the church, the government, and the army were infiltrated by them. DuPont's face became more serious. I apply for an immediate emotional test of all priests and a thorough search of their homes. First, I will eliminate the hidden dangers within the ranks of priests so as to deal with the possible changes at any time. Let's start with a few of us. Through the observation just now, DuPont can determine the identity of Brent's emotional crime. It's an indisputable fact that he wants to frame ELO Pacher. But to say that he didn't do it for a hidden purpose, DuPont himself didn't believe it. In his mind, he has labeled Brent as a resistance group, and he agrees with Chen Mo's inference. From the current signs, this is obviously a conspiracy of the resistance organization. They want to break up the church's strongest force against emotional criminals and resistance organizations through Brent, the inner ghost. There must be a bigger conspiracy brewing behind this. Think of here, DuPont some cannot sit. In the past, they thought that the resistance organization was just a group of mobs. For a strong church, it was just scabies, not too much on heart. But the real strength of the resistance organization, revealed by Brent's exposure, made DuPont secretly surprised. They even reached into the most important missionary department of the church. If it wasn't for Chen Mo's early discovery, they might have framed and killed all the missionaries one by one, even carried out a sneak attack and assassination in the mission, and then launched all their hidden forces during the vacuum period when the church's top leaders lost the highest force, giving the church a fatal blow. DuPont didn't know the extent of their infiltration into the church, the government, and the army, but just from Brent, who was involved in the ranks of the priests, he could know that their strength was absolutely not weak. If they suddenly launched, even if they could not completely shake the church's rule, it would bring them great trouble. At this time, DuPont deeply agreed with Chen Mo's initiative to test and search the priests' organization to eliminate internal hidden dangers.